I
Right.
mean, you think will it stay that suppressed that the cries of the poverty stricken and their cries of hunger are not going to be heard by the rest of America?
Well,
That would be disappointing, gee, to say the least. I mean,
I mean, just hearing you say it out loud hurts. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Another exciting edition of Two Men in Black and White. Mark Hayes, Brock and Ellis here with you. A couple of yahoos from Peekskill, New York, also the home of The Facts of Life, a hit television series in the early 70s for you uninitiated TV viewers. All right, Brock, let's get right into it, my friend. We are up against it, backs against the wall. Halloween is tonight, and at midnight, millions of Americans will lose their SNAP benefits, access to food and nutrition staples that they need to survive. Not because they want Halloween candy, but to survive. This is the working poor. This is the poor. These are people who some may have been incapacitated in some form or another, right? These are not people who are saying, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to let the government feed me. That is the Republican Party line. Tommy, did you hear Tommy Tuberville? The guy is fucking brain dead. First of all, can we just put it out there that he wasn't a very good football coach? Mediocre at best. Got a couple of jobs, had a couple of wins here. How he got that Auburn job, I'll never know. And then how Cincinnati hired him after that, I'll never know. This guy was never really a good football coach. And with the talent he had at Auburn, should have done much better. Anyway, I digress. He doesn't know shit about how the government works. He's sitting there this morning saying that, some of these young men around the country need to get up and go to work. And we know who he's talking about, right? It's code for black men are lazy, right, and not working. He really doesn't understand who's receiving SNAP benefits, and that's the problem here.
it is a problem, but I'll say this. Comfortable white American over here, I had no idea how big the SNAP program was, right?
Yeah.
This is yet another civic lesson that we're getting from Maga as they cut things off, and then we start realizing how integral they were to so many Americans, and many of us who live comfortable lives flew blind on this the whole time. Now we can either go the Tuberville route and then when we learn about it, be an asshole, or after learning about it, we can go, whoa, this is an important program to 1 in 8 Americans are getting SNAP
1 in 8.
benefits. One
Think
in
about
eight,
that, bro.
42 million people, and the majority are children, elderly, and disabled. That's the majority of it. So painting this as that's a bunch of lazy black men sitting on the porch, right? Rubbing their belly when it's just not the dynamic. But that's the way
That
MAGA's
makes
trying
sense.
to paint the program. They're painting it as either Rollins, head of agriculture, is out calling it a corrupt program, right? Trump is out saying that most of the beneficiaries are Democrats, and it's Democrats hurting their quote own people in not like rolling over on healthcare to that the Dems are standing in the way of feeding America. So it's just a pack of lies that are getting thrown out there. It's a massive PR effort by
Yeah.
MAGA and all their acolytes in the media to try to paint this as either as a ton of things, right? A flawed system, a Democrat system, and trying to then also place the blame on Democrats. I just don't see that it's working. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so obvious that the money's there. If there's money for Trump golf trips, if there's money for weapons to bomb Venezuelan boats in the Caribbean for no
Fishing
reason,
boats.
if there's
Yeah.
money for Cash Patel to fly around on military jets with his girlfriend, right? Like, no one's buying that there's no money in the $1 trillion out of the, $3 trillion Trump saved on his trip to China, or the $20 trillion we've gotten out of tariffs, out of all
All
this money
profit.
that's supposedly there, all these profits. There's no money to buy food for starving people, and we're going to pretend and make it and have a racist argument that this program can't survive because we're same as they said for US aid, because it's corrupt. It's corrupt and it's lazy beneficiaries who don't deserve it.
Right. So what they're trying to want us to believe, trying to get us to believe, is that women, infants, and children, the supplemental nutrition program, also known as WIC, right? Roughly 41% of all infants in the US won't be eligible to get those benefits. We're literally starving women and children. So what you're telling me is you want a freshly born baby to pull himself up by his bootstraps and get out there and get to work. Really? And a mother that's just given birth who may have, been underemployed or unemployed due to no fault of her own. You want her to get out there and pull herself up by her bootstraps with her newborn baby. See, this is the idiocy. And Brock, again, who has failed us in this? Who has helped the Republicans move forward this messaging? It's the media. The media has access to this information. Why aren't they fucking stopping these people in their tracks and saying, well, Senator, that's not exactly true. The numbers say X, Y, and Z. The numbers say this. Why isn't anyone stopping the president? Say, Mr. President, when you fill out your form for SNAP assistance, nowhere on that form does it ask for your party affiliation or who you voted for last year. So how the fuck do you know who's a Democrat and who's not? All right, 14 out of the top 20 SNAP recipient states are red states. Right? The top beneficiaries are all MAGA. That's the MAGA crowd. They're the ones receiving the most from the government. And yet, these folks are allowed to get away with this messaging in the media, and no one questions it. So, we can't even blame comfortable white America in the suburbs because their media outlets are telling them, yeah, it's probably true. So I can't even get mad at you. The only reason I know what it is because it was aimed at my community. And when we were at Howard University, we would have these conversations because remember, that was back during the Reagan era, back during when, black women were being painted as basically criminals and stealing from the system for being welfare queens. And back then we knew the numbers were reversed. Back in the 80s, we knew it was a lie. And so I can't even blame comfortable white America for not being upset or not being.
I'm not giving me, as a member of Comfortable White America, such a pass because you can find out. The information's out there. You don't have to be turning on, the Barry Weiss-led CBS. You don't have to be watching CNN. Even the Washington Post had an article today about who the SNAP beneficiaries are. It's making its way through. It's not that complicated unless you're so stuck in your beliefs that it could only be people of color, and that you are resistant to even additional statistics and information being put in front of you. I think you're just staying willfully ignorant on this topic.
That's true.
The question will be, will enough of white America make enough noise that it works its way through to their media and their elected officials? Will any of their elected officials feel any pain or just get, dressed down in public, literally like screamed at when they try to show their face in polite America because it's a family member of someone who's, basically starving.
Right.
You think, will it stay that suppressed that the cries of the poverty stricken and their cries of hunger are not going to be heard by the rest of America?
Well,
fuck, that would be disappointing, to say the least.
Just hearing you say it out loud hurts, right? That's where we are.
42 million people.
Yeah, we're not sure if anyone gives a shit about 42 million people going hungry. How about that? How about we aren't really sure if people care if women and children go hungry? We didn't give a shit about, the people in other countries that AID was providing aid for. All those tens of millions of dollars of food in those storage warehouses that went bad. instead of going to human beings to save lives, right? Medical aid, nutritional aid, that we know the outcome was going to be the death of many, many human beings. And here we are in our own country about ready to basically do away with 42 million people and tell them, you're on your fucking own.
Yeah,
Now,
I mean,
this
it
judge in
starts
Rhode Island,
tomorrow.
yeah,
Yeah,
this
there's the
judge in
judge
Rhode
that,
Island,
yeah, go ahead, sorry.
yeah, the judge in Rhode Island is supposedly hearing, arguments on whether or not, the Trump administration can go into a reserve fund and fund the program. The argument from the Trump team is, yeah, I don't think there's enough money there to cover it anyway for November, so let's not bother. What the fuck is that? These people have no soul. I mean, when you can go into court and argue that, how fucked up are you in the head?
I mean, we added $1 trillion in debt in the last, you know, 9 months,
Yep.
right? So we're spending on all kinds of other horse shit, right? We know that, right? And oh, by the way, tax cuts for the wealthiest. Somehow we don't need that income because those quote job creators obviously aren't creating jobs good enough that allow people to be able to afford rent, medicine, and food. And there goes food.
Yeah, well, doesn't it trickle down? I thought that if we gave these advantages to the 83 billionaires in the US, that, yeah, they would make opportunities and help trickle down to the rest of us lowlifes who, weren't born with silver spoons or who didn't hit it big on somebody else's technology like fucking Tesla or some other shit. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from Bezos because I think Amazon is a great idea. But the fact that he's running commercials here in Atlanta talking about getting health benefits on day one at Amazon, I don't think that that's true.
No, he's full of shit, and they fight like banshees to not allow unions anywhere, right?
Exactly.
They don't want their workers having any like power.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a fucking horse shit, right?
Yeah, man.
That's propaganda also. But this just comes to the simplest level: is like, does a government feel like, do the people feel like they want a government that takes care of its citizens in need? Like, are we a fuck 'em? We are total toxic capitalism, society,
Appears to
or
be.
and if that's the way it goes, I hope for everyone's sake that nothing negative happens to them or their family. Hope they never get in a car accident. Hope they never trip on the sidewalk. Hope they never get injured playing pickup basketball. God forbid, because it's a society that doesn't want to take care of each other. We could see it on our message board. On our message board, I'm shocked at how many people are on there saying, feeding your family is, parents' responsibility,
Right.
not the government. Well, what happens if the father got killed in a coal mine accident? Because we don't really have much regulation. So so now there is no father in the house to feed. And oh, what if the mother, has a slip disc and can't work because she has a bad back? Oh, we're just going to all sit around collectively as a society and watch those kids starve to death on the front
Yep.
lawn
Yep.
because we don't care. We don't feel any responsibility to our neighbors and brethren. None at all. And that's the
No.
fuckum society, the
Yep.
toxic selfishness society that we see on our chat board when we were just talking about thinking it's it's government's job to take care of people in need. That
Yeah.
gets to why we cut FEMA. You start thinking about all the areas where we just have a fuckum society. Didn't happen to me. Why should I chip in for them?
You're right. Right. And that's across, it's amazing the shit that people say on our message board. Oh, and just coming across now on breaking news, the judge has ordered the Trump administration to use those funds that are available. Let's see.
Available where, right? So the judge,
Right.
I get, but once again, there's no enforcement mechanism, right? That's
Exactly.
a ruling. That's nice. Maybe that makes it harder from a PR point of view to not
Right.
release the funds or spend the
Right.
money. But there's no enforcement mechanism that they could just, sorry, judge, thank you for the ruling. And then what?
Well, Brock, remember the big fucked up beautiful bill? They didn't hit the filibuster. They basically ignored the filibuster. rule. They didn't have 60 votes on that. And they pushed it through anyway. So they basically violated. They didn't give a fuck about government procedure and how it works and, the norms and, these, baked in kind of processes that we just don't violate. They don't give a shit about decorum and how it works. All they want to do is inflict pain and enrich themselves.
Well, decorum, we have one of the branches of government isn't even functioning right now, right? I mean,
Right.
Johnson's told the House to stay
Take
away
off.
for the entire month of November, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and the Democrats are in D.C. trying to make noise, right? Playing a PR game, but the Republicans have been told not even to be in the city, right? Just
Right.
be at home.
Right.
Stay out of the way. Stay quiet. Don't do town halls and don't be in DC. They're literally just being told to hide out.
Right.
So that's not a government that's planning on helping the people.
It's certainly not a government that gives a shit about the people. And how do you remedy it? We're not even sure if we're going to be able to elect the people that we want to vote for in 26. Did you see North Carolina? North Carolina has basically vetoed the black vote because of their gerrymandering efforts by the Republican-led state
And they're
legislature.
also they're also just putting more and more mechanisms into place to strip people off the voter rolls. So we
Yep.
know if there's an
Yep.
election, it's going to be totally restricted in terms of who. It's going to be a mock election because so many people are not going to be able to vote. But that's a year. That's even a year out, right? The question is, will rank and file MAGA is being hungry enough, like losing their local hospital, maybe,
Maybe that's not
losing their
enough.
access to their medicine, maybe hasn't been enough, or maybe it hasn't kicked in quite enough yet, but is being hungry enough to shake their belief that being MAGA and the MAGA movement is
Wins.
working on their behalf. And
Yeah.
it'll just come back to, is their racism going to feed them?
Right.
Because it seems like they have a choice to make right now.
And I'm of the belief that plenty of these MAGA voters have children. I think a lot of these MAGA voters have children. Is their children being hungry a winning proposition for them and their racism? That's the next question to ask after that. Yeah, maybe if I'm a parent, I can go hungry. But what about my kids?
So if you're rank
Holy
and file
Christmas.
MAGA, are you buying the Trump Mike Johnson line that it's the Democrats are standing between you and your access to food? Are you sitting there blaming the Democrats for this? Because chances are your local representative is a Republican and
Right.
Trump is a Republican and you're all MAGA. You're all on the same MAGA team. And you think they're going to be sitting there with an empty refrigerator going, fuck, those damn libtards have
Right.
screwed me.
Right. But Brock, even with that question, I mean that's a great question. I don't know how they could believe it, but they've been putting themselves through mental gymnastics for 10 years now to believe this fucking guy. So anything's fucking possible. But let's get down to the brass tacks of this. What are we talking about with SNAP benefits? Right here in the state of Georgia, for 2024, for each household member per month, $187. Okay. So for each household member per day, that's $6.15. Can you eat 3 meals a day off $6.15? That's
Jesus.
$2 and a nickel. What can you get to eat? Can you get a candy bar for $2?
Not anymore. It
You can
sounds like college when the food plan ran out, when it was like can of tuna fish,
exactly
macaroni and cheese.
oodles and noodles. I mean,
No,
what?
it's absurd. It's and
It's
it's
crazy.
it's so little money. And come on, we're the largest economy in the world by a long shot. And the money's there. These are all choices. We spend on so much fucking absurd
Bullshit.
shit.
Right.
We're building a fucking $200-300 million ballroom, 400 million probably by the time it's done. So that was a necessary project, but there's no money to feed 1 in 8 Americans. Like I just don't know how they're gonna look. We keep talking about how great the MAGA movement is on their messaging and how they've won it our entire lives, our entire lives.
Right,
They've out messaged and shaped the narrative in the country.
right.
They're going to be able to shape the narrative again on hunger in this country. Jesus Christ, maybe so. But God, I'm skeptical. And God, are we that foolish? And is the rank and file MAGA that foolish? And
Yeah.
that desperate to feel like they're running shit around here that they don't need to eat?
You know how bad it is, Brock? This is how bad it is. One of my favorite follows, Aaron Rupar, on social media, had a clip posted from Morning Joe. I didn't even know that show was still on. But, they were so incensed by Tommy Tuberville's comments. That's where I saw his comments. Tommy Tuberville's comments and the fact that these folks are so clueless. Even Morning Joe, Mika and Joe Scarborough, who went down and bent the knee after the election, were like, what in the hell are these folks talking about? So again, while the media has led us astray, there is almost no way they can sound knowledgeable by continuing to parrot the Republican narrative on this. I mean, there's no way you can keep any kind of credibility as a journalist. But credibility as a journalist, anyway, has gone out the window with fake news and the rise of Donald Trump.
Well, we're going to see because as more actual stories come out of people who aren't able to get food,
Yes.
as more visuals come at food banks that we know don't are going to run out of food really quickly, but they're going to feed as many people as they can till they run out, right? Of those long lines. And if there's visuals of people being turned away at food banks because the food bank ran out of food and things along those lines, right? America always needs visuals, right? That's why that visual of that long line in Maryland of all the federal workers online for food because they couldn't pay was like, made an impact. I feel like even just the mildly compassionate or the totally non-empathetic MAGA a-hole will be moved at least a little bit by watching families be turned away at food banks as they,
Well,
children cry in, pains of hunger.
well, Brock, what's next? If you can't afford food, how are you paying your light bill? How are you paying your mortgage? How are you paying your car insurance?
Nothing. All those good.
How are you paying your cell phone? Right? How are you paying you need cell phone, internet, and a vehicle to go interview for jobs, right? To get
That's
jobs.
out the window. It's your meds, your food, and having a roof over your head. Although I would imagine we'll see higher homelessness because people are just going to not be able
Yes.
to, pay the rent. The rent would go third, right? It's got to go food, medicine, rent, right?
Right.
And
Right.
maybe for some people, medicine comes first, like diabetics, right? You
Right.
can't even think about food if you can't have the insulin.
And now, since we're in a fuck 'em society, right? What are these banks going to do, right? When your mortgage hasn't been paid in
Yeah,
2 months, three
foreclosing. I
months,
mean, usually they
right?
just foreclose.
Right.
They're
Right. I mean, what are we going to, this, see, now we've been through this before in the black church where the benevolence fund starts trying to figure out who to hand out funds to help them pay their monthly bills. My mother was on the benevolence committee at our church and had to get off because of the stress. It is a stressful to say, oh my gosh, here is my friend, but here is someone else who needs it
who needs
more.
it more. Yeah, yeah. I mean, Jesus. That's like these so to me food panels on who really needs it most. Look, we're
Right.
stepping into bad territory here. I don't know why MAGA's drawn the line at food, except that they think that they can win this battle and like steamroll the Dems to come back and vote through like a new budget. I mean, that's what the game they're playing, right? They're playing the budget game on the food of 42 million Americans. I think it should be a losing play, but we're in a minority rule country right now that's
Absolutely.
on the brink of total authoritarianism, so it might not matter if people are starving.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're getting what they want. They're getting their racism. They're getting their brutality through ICE, and more brutality is going to come with ICE because ICE will be the unit, if you will, that puts down the uprising to come.
Yeah, and
right?
Christy Noem's already out saying we're not done till everyone who's in the country illegally is thrown out. So they've already punted on that we're just going after criminals, right?
Right.
Now it's
Right.
just like basically a flat out people of color are going to get a shakedown of any person of color, and some will get to stay if some will get to stay.
Well, Brock, when you got Black Hawk helicopters in a major city like Chicago and armed forces repelling that, I mean, come on. The war on drugs wasn't that ridiculous. I mean, they did use army equipment and batarams and shit like that. But Jesus Christ, military issue Black Hawk helicopters, to
Well,
find so-called immigrant.
we get out in March once every 3 months, and yeah, and the numbers keep going up. But as usual, you look back and you go, okay, what did those protests accomplish? And the answer is still nothing.
Little to nothing. Yep,
Little, little to nothing.
literally nothing. Yeah, it's
It's bad times.
frustrating.
These are dark times.
Oh my God. It doesn't get any darker.
I got a few quick hits for you today.
Hit me.
You got one for me?
Sure, sure. I'm concerned that the NCAA is wanting to allow its athletes to get into the betting game. We've already seen, numerous stories of athletes throwing games, the athletic addiction. I don't know if you caught Kenny Anderson and Charles Barkley getting into a back and forth the other night over the NBA arrests, but, to even consider allowing NCAA athletes to bet on games and say, oh, but don't bet on your games. I mean, it's just ridiculous to me. And now Congress wants information. What the fuck are you? You can't even do the job we elected you to do. Now
Wow,
you
the
want to get into college
betting
sports?
culture's out of
Fuck out of here.
control. Once we allowed it, to become allowable on the phones, it's become so ubiquitous, right? Become every other commercial is a gambling commercial, and then with the little disclaimer at the end, hey, if you have a problem,
Yeah,
you know what? Almost by definition, you have a problem if you're on your phone betting money you
betting,
probably
right.
can't afford to lose all day, every day. Okay, that's a huge problem. The college sports is so off the rails right now. The governor of Louisiana has stepped in and basically got the AD at LSU fired after they fired the coach. So what? Now it's going to be government run
Right.
sports teams
Insane.
at the college level. Okay,
Insane.
here's what I got three for you real quick. Number one, apparently Orlando. I'm glad you flew home safely because apparently we don't have enough air traffic controllers. And Orlando sent out a memo the other day. They had no one on staff, so the delays are kicking in because we don't have air traffic controllers. That's where white America will be more upset by that than by
Yes.
other people not being
Yes.
fed if they have to sit in an airport for 4 or 6 hours. You'll hear
Yes.
cries, and boy, the media loves to cover airline delays.
Yeah.
But that's a coming. So obviously, Secretary Duffy hasn't solved that issue. Number two, Billie Eilish. You familiar with Billie Eilish?
Billie Eilish. Yes, indeed.
Young white artist.
With major swag.
Stepped out, made a huge donation, like $11 million off of her last album, was speaking at some sort of Wall Street Journal event of which Zuckerberg was in the crowd, and she kind of shouted out the oligarchs to be more benevolent and to open their purse strings and
Nice.
to be donating back in his while he was in the audience. So when I love high profile people use their platforms in
Yes.
a way that
Yes,
can be
indeed.
impactful because their voice resonates so much louder than even ours with our close to 1,000 subscribers at this point, right? It makes a big splash and then it gets picked up in the news. So right in Zuckerberg's face, Billie Eilish made some aggressive comments. And third and last, there's been one casualty, well, two casualties of the Epstein files. Epstein and now
It's
Prince
Andrew.
Andrew.
He's homeless.
Prince Andrew not only being stripped of his title, but yeah, kicked out of his house. He's being demoted to, I guess, a second tier castle in the UK. But it's interesting how the public has turned on
Yes.
him. It's actually
Well,
really bad for the monarchy because their
well,
only job is to properly represent the people.
right. And did you see how Prince Charles was heckled at a public event? just a day or two ago. How long have you known about Andrew and Epstein? Right? And, the monarchy does not like that negative kind of press attention. But it also screws the Duchess of York, Sarah Ferguson, because now she's got to find a new place to live because she and Andrew have lived together all these years. So she was shacking up there. Apparently, this place is so big you could live there and never know, never see the other person. So, not that they were struggling.
But it took that Virginia Giuffre's
Straight
book
book.
coming out to finally be the straw that broke the camel's back, because it's obviously been decades of, you know, not hushed tones, but just
Right.
not addressing it. But
Right.
hey, they're
Whatever
a
it
step
takes.
ahead of us, right?
Yep. In terms of
Prince Andrew
accountability.
wasn't the only one in those Epstein files. So
Nope.
we're still over here denying that they exist, right? We still have a president who's pretending like they were invented by Hillary Clinton, Obama, Biden, Comey, Jack
Right.
Smith, Merrick Garland, throw a name out there, right? That it's all a sham. And in England, they actually
Are
took
holding
action.
people accountable. Right.
Yeah.
There's some
Took them
accountability.
20, 30 years, but they actually took an action.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. That's good stuff. All right, buddy. That's it for us today. Let's rack it up and do it again tomorrow.
All right, Mark, always a pleasure. Gotta go hand out some candy.
Yes, sir. All right, buddy. Be careful.
Talk to you tomorrow.
All righty.
All right. Bye bye.
Peace.